Hi, good morning. We're going to do a roll call. Good morning. We're going to start with a roll call. We have Commissioner Tedder here. Hello, here and present. Thank you. Jamonda Graham. Joseph Gregory.
Present.
Elizabeth Nauer.
Present.
Madeline Ligori.
Present.
Jorge Martinez.
Present.
Russell Pacunas. Matthew Snide.
Here.
Thomas Schnettner.
Here.
Matthew Smith.
Here.
Douglas Swan. And Jared Whittington. We have quorum.
Great, thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt the minutes of the August 12th, 2021 meeting. Thank you, Jared. Does anyone have any corrections? Okay. Joy, can you call a vote to approve the minutes?
Yes. Does anyone have any objections to the approval of the minutes from the August 12th, 2021 ECB board meeting? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes are approved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Olga Stats, our general counsel, to introduce a proposed rule updating Oath's water penalty schedule. Yes, hi. My microphone, sorry.
Hi, good morning, everyone. You had in your materials the water penalty update. This is an unusual thing that we're doing. Normally, as you know, we're in the process of transferring all penalty schedules that had been in ECB rules, old ECB rules, back to the agencies, and this has been going on for a number of years now. But in this particular case, we are proposing rules for DEP, and specifically their water rules, because the administrative code indicates that the water penalties are the responsibility of ECB. At this point, we have chosen to go forward to allow DEP to pass the rules that they need with respect to their penalties, but at the same time, work on amending the administrative code to allow those rules to be promulgated by DEP in the future. We have precedent for this a few years back, I believe. The same thing occurred with respect to the sewer code, and there had been an amendment to the administrative code to allow DEP itself to promulgate those rules. So we're hoping for the same result now, but in the meantime, in order not to delay DEP in its in promulgation of rules and revised penalty schedule, we are going through with this particular penalty adjustment. Are there any questions? Thank you.
I have a question regarding the actual rule.
Yes.
All right, so it has a reference to fracking. So I know that I hear fracking in connection with other, activities in other states. How is fracking an issue in a densely populated area like New York City?
I'm going to have to defer to Russell Pacunas about the substance of the rule. I'm not exactly sure about the technological and the scientific work behind
Okay.
it.
Yeah, hi, good morning. This is Russ Pacunas. I just was having some problems. I know it says that I'm there, but I'm having audio problems, so I'm actually speaking and listening over a phone connection. Could you just repeat the question?
Right. So the rule has language and that mentions fracking. So I'm curious to know how is fracking an issue in a densely populated area like New York City when you hear in connection with, other states in less populated areas.
Oh, okay. So in other words, the part that we're adding regarding the section that deals with fracking waste.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a section that we are adding to the penalty schedule. It's more or less on a theoretical basis because the council passed a law prohibiting the disposal of fracking waste in the city. We just want to be prepared in the extremely unlikely event that that ever happens. But we do not anticipate anyone actually disposing of fracking waste in New York City. The closest fracking, I believe, is somewhere in Pennsylvania, and we do not anticipate any actual disposal of that waste or any need to ever utilize this section. But because the council did pass a law and provide for a penalty, we do want to add it to the penalty schedule, abundance of caution.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the proposed rule. Thank you, Jared. I'm going to ask Jared to call a vote.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, I would like to ask if there are any objections to the approval of the proposed rule updating Oath's water penalty schedule. Seeing and hearing none, the motion passes.
Great, thank you so much. I'm now going to ask Olga Stats again to introduce proposed final rule, clarifying the procedures for remote proceedings and appearances.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, again. This is the final round for the remote rules. At our last gathering, we had interesting discussions and substantive discussions respecting the proposed rule. That proposed rule has now gone through public hearing and it's ready for a final vote. I'm happy to answer any additional questions you might have about this rule.
This is Elizabeth Nauer, appointed member. I guess I wasn't at the prior board meeting where the proposed rule was discussed.
Yeah.
In reviewing the minutes, I did notice that Matthew Schneid had asked about the provision limiting representative appearances to 25 summonses and whether that really meant 25 different cases, because sometimes when it's possible for posting cases, et cetera, for there to actually be more than 25 summonses heard at one time. So I guess I took it from the minutes that there was going to be some thought put into to revising that to clarify, but it seems like
No, the word is still summons. Because that's the way the clerk, that's the people who actually process these do everything by summons. And the 25 limitation is really for the individual attorney. So a firm can theoretically have many more than that. But one attorney at a time per phone call. This is basically the number that was doable over the course of our exercises over the pandemic. This is the number that's actually doable for one attorney to do.
But Elizabeth, we can make exceptions, and I do see your point. This is Amy Slipka for the record. I do see your point regarding posting violations, and often it is one defense. So if we think we can manage 100 or so, we will do so.
Okay, so you can, you ad hoc, if there is some, exception where it only makes sense that one person is going to appear for the case because it's all related and basically all the same thing, that you can just make an ad hoc exception in that case. You're not bound by it.
Correct, and I
Okay.
don't think there'll be any issues in that sense. We are finding that, just as for your information, we are finding that these high volume reps who are signing in for more than, 25, 30 cases, they're not getting through their calendar in a day. And I actually feel that's a little bit of a disservice to the respondents who hire them, because they have to be adjourned or rescheduled.
Hi, this is Matt Schneid speaking. I thought last time we were drawing the distinction between a summons and a case. And maybe, I'm somewhat new to this, but we were saying that, a case could be 5 summons, and we were going to revise it to say 25 cases. Or again, I thought that's how we're drawing the distinction. Maybe I'm a little bit.
No, it would be by summonses, but there are some exceptions where there's one defense for certain types of violations, such as posting violations. It's usually one defense. I didn't post it, somebody else posted it. They got the flyer, so it depends. It's really summons, because high volume reps sign in for 25 summonses. They are each a separate case, and it's a huge volume.
Do we need to have specific language that permits these quote unquote exceptions to be made within the actual rule itself?
Not necessarily. CAPA requires us to put in the rule things that are what we expect to happen across the board. But we do have the authority in certain instances to make exceptions. But it's what's in it?
Yeah.
Right.
I
It
don't-
says
I don't answer your question, but you see it does state it in the rule.
right, but yes, it says unless an exception is granted by a tribunal prior to the hearing date. So I guess they would just ask the hearing officer. Is that logistically what we're talking about?
They usually request their hearings before to the clerk's office. The chief clerk discusses it with me at this point in time, and we decide what we think we can handle.
Okay.
And just for all of your awareness, from March 2020 through September of 2021, we were doing all remote hearings, all telephonic hearings. And then in September, we changed our, it's basically an order by the chief judge to state that individuals who, or, respondents or their attorneys who request an in-person hearing will be offered an in-person hearing barring unforeseen circumstances. But we've actually granted every in-person hearing request that has been made over the last month and a half. And as long as the respondent is making that request at least, 3 days in advance, the request will be granted for an in-person hearing. So at this point now, everyone has the option of a telephonic hearing, an in-person hearing, or, an online written submission in order to challenge the summons. Very few individuals have actually requested in-person hearings, which to me says that our remote processes have been working extremely well and are very effective. That's what people prefer, and not including the high volume reps. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to ask Jared to file and ask for a motion to approve. Thank you, Jared. And I'm going to ask Joy to call for a vote on the final rule clarifying the procedures for remote proceedings.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, I will ask if there are any exceptions to the, I'm sorry. If, there's any objections to approving the rule, final rule, regarding remote proceedings and appearances at both tribunals. Seeing and hearing none, the motion passes.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to ask Olga Stats again to introduce Oath's proposed final rule regarding repealing Oath sanitation penalty schedule.
Commissioner, again, this is the final step for the repeal of the sanitation rule. Does that mean? Oh. Mr. LaPlante. Mr. LaPlante, could you please mute? Thank you. Thank you. So at this stage, we are presenting you with the proposed final rule repealing Oath sanitation penalty schedule and allowing the Department of Sanitation to promulgate its own penalty schedule. This is, as you know, part of our process that we started a few years ago to remove all of the penalty schedules from the Oath ECB rules and have those penalty schedules go in the rules of the various enforcement agencies. And so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I just want to confirm there were no changes from the last time we discussed the proposal, right?
No.
Okay.
Great, thank you. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask Joy to call for a vote on the proposed final rule repealing Oath's sanitation penalty schedule.
At this time, thank you, Commissioner. At this time, are there any objections to the approval of this final rule?
I'd like to abstain.
Thank you. We have one abstention. Any other abstentions or objections? The motion passes.
Great, thank you so much. I'm now going to ask Russell Pecunius to introduce DEP's request for a cease and desist order.
Yes, thank you. This is Russell Pecunius with DEP Legal. The department is requesting that the board approve an order to cease and desist. We have not requested one of these for quite some time because of the pandemic. But we have a situation here involving the Chipotle located at 185 7th Avenue in Brooklyn. Our first inspection regarding noise from the kitchen exhaust was in January of 2019, and there were subsequent inspections that led to violations in September and in December of 2019. The Chipotle defaulted on the first two summonses and was found in violation as to the third. At that point, before we came to the board to ask for a cease and desist, the COVID pandemic started and everything sort of closed down. And I guess the problem kind of went away, at least temporarily. We then started to receive complaints again about the same equipment at the same establishment and issued a fourth violation in October of last year and a fifth violation in March of this year. The fourth violation, the fourth summons, they were found in violation of in March, and the fifth summons has been rescheduled to a couple of weeks from now. Because of the repeated noise violations from the same equipment at the same establishment and the continuing failure by the respondent to correct this noise condition, the department is requesting that the board or issue an order to cease and desist.
Any questions? Matt?
Hi, thank you. This is actually my first time we've dealt with one of these since I've been on the board. Can you explain the import of what happens when you have a cease and desist? Like what occurs? Do they go by and someone shuts off their
Sure.
exhaust?
Sure. So they would be scheduled, they would receive a notice to appear at a hearing in front of an oath hearing officer. And the purpose of that hearing would be for them to show why the equipment should not be sealed. In other words, it's an opportunity for them to demonstrate that they have resolved the problem. Normally, what they would bring forward would be evidence that they can bring forward evidence that they've replaced the offending equipment because the cease and desist order does pertain specifically to the equipment that's been found in violation, so they can choose to replace it. The equipment may be in need of repair or servicing, which could solve the problem, so they could show evidence of that. They could show evidence that they have put up an acoustical enclosure to keep the noise from reaching the complainant's residence. So there are a number of ways in which they can demonstrate that they have come into compliance. Then there would be, once that has taken place, there would be recommendations made by the hearing officer, which would come to the board, which normally entail them being subject to reinspection for a specific period of time, during which, if there's a violation, they can be immediately sealed. And if they default on that hearing, on the cease and desist hearing, then they would be sealed forthwith.
And it sounds like they've got a number of previous violations. Do we have any understanding about what actions they may have taken, or just the reason they have 5 or whatever number of violations you noted because nothing has happened?
No, I don't have any specific information regarding any measures that the Chipotle has taken to correct this. The readings appear to be fairly consistent across the inspections that I'm seeing. One of them was 61 decibels, one of them was 60 decibels. So one of them was 58, with the allowable being 42. So it does not appear that there's been any material change to the noise level across the various inspections that we've done.
And the way to cure it would likely be to install some sound dampening apparatus? Is that what would be?
It can be. I mean, how they choose to cure it is up to them. They can replace the equipment. They can erect an acoustical barrier. They can come up with their own solution, or they can hire a noise consultant. How compliance comes about is left up to them.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the cease and desist order. Thank you, Jared. Joy, can you please call for vote?
Sure, thank you, Commissioner, and I just want to note for the record that Shamanda Graham, have you joined us?
Yes, good morning, guys. I am so sorry for my tardiness. I
Yeah,
had a
thank-
text for Thursday. I'm so used to the meetings being on Thursday. I'm so sorry.
Okay, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to just ask if there are any objections to the board approving the DEP's request for a cease and desist order in this matter. Okay, seeing and hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you so much. Now going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss new decisions in the cases listed in the judicial report. Thank you, Jared. We're now going into it. You, Karen. And bring back anyone who was in the lobby. Karen, is Mr. LaPlante back in? Okay, good. Yeah, okay, good. Our next board meeting is December 9th, 2021. Are there any additional questions?
Yes. Okay. I needed confirmation on those things. I believe is true. Yeah. And then, yes. Okay, so you're updating them. Yeah. Okay, good.
I think that's someone's background. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Commissioner, this is
Yeah.
Shamanda Graham from DOB. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. I just have one question. Are we moving the meetings to Tuesday?
Which meeting? The next meeting?
The board meetings. They're usually on Thursday. So I'm just wondering, is there any push to move, or are we going to revert back to Thursday, or was this just a quirk today?
As we discussed the last meeting, because there was some, this is Joy Thompson speaking, because of some rules that had hard deadlines, we had to schedule this meeting for Tuesday, but the
Okay.
December 9th meeting is on a Thursday.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much. See you soon.